Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we come together as a community and talk about photography. And as always, I'd like the audience to drive the conversation. I'm here to answer any questions you may have or for my opinion on anything. I'll do my best to answer them. And also, I'd like to catch up on what I've been up to this week. And uh, I've been doing, I've been really busy this week actually with some photo walks and things with the group. And so I'm going to share some photos I did. I've been gathering some new inspiration from a new photographer I found. And he's a current photographer, and his name is Michael Kenna. So let me know in the chat section if you guys are familiar with his work. But I was really impressed with what he does. He does primarily long exposure on his Hasselblad 500, like the old film camera, the one that I have. 120 film. And the only time he uses digital is when he um, he has work for his clients like BMW and Saab. So he's a top tier, high end, master photographer. I don't know how else to put it, and I think his work will endure the test of time. So if you're familiar with him, let me know your thoughts. If not, I'll put a link to his website. Let me see in the chat section. I encourage you guys to check it out. I mean, I follow a lot of different photographers. And what I discovered, I went through my portfolio from 2022, just the last 4 years. And I really haven't done a lot of long exposure photography. I could only find a couple of halfway decent examples. And I don't know why I don't do it more often. It's really, I think, a very beautiful, surreal, uh, tight kind of photography. And also, you know, long photography in and of itself is not, anything new. But, what Michael Kenna does is he has a really good eye for composition and isolating subjects and uh, really has a mastery of tonality. So I assume he's doing some work in the dark room with his negatives. So it's just amazing, amazing work. Um, so I try not to share other people's images directly here online. So I will refrain from that for just whatever reasons, laws change and maybe it's okay now, but maybe later it won't be. So I try not to do that. But there's a link to, oh, did I put the link? There's the link. Sorry. There's the link to his work. So there's that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We're also expecting the announcement for September 9th. I haven't heard any official announcement, but the rumors are September 9th, the camera's going to be announced. And 43 Rumors has a screenshot of some sort of patent or Wi-Fi license for a new camera from OM Systems. So I'm excited about that. My prediction is, and they're all over the place, but my prediction is very conservative. I think we'll get an EPL 10, an EPL series, or an EP7. So the EP7 has the creative dial on the front. So it's sort of like a PenF without an EVF. Uh, and then there's the EPL, which has, no EVF. Oh, excuse me. And that one is really long in the tooth as well. So I'm thinking we're going to get like an EPL 10 with the guts of the OM5 Mark II. So we'll get some more advanced computational photography, better video, and 20 megapixels. in maybe a slightly redesigned, casing to be either more retro, right? Kind of give it more of a rangefinder kind of feel or compact camera kind of feel. That's my prediction, but who knows? We'll see. Uh, long shots for me would be the OM1 Mark III. I seriously doubt it. A Pen F Mark II. Seriously doubt it. Uh, a new sensor, way out there. Not going to happen. These are things I predict that it's not going to be like a wow camera like when we had the OM1, which I still think is a fabulous camera. And then, so I feel like there's going to be sort of an entry-level camera. The problem is in the entry-level market, the competition is pretty stiff. And they're normally the best sellers. Like on the Canon side, you have the R50 selling for $700-800 all day long. You have the uh, the Nikon Z50 uh, and the Z30s. The Z30 selling for like $500-600 all day long. So I get that the Pen series is going to have a little bit of a premium on it for styling and all of the computational things that home system cameras can do. But those things don't stand out really against, other cameras on the market today that have really good autofocus. I just feel like megapixels and autofocus is all new consumers care about, and what manufacturers push and market. And then of course styling, but you also have the sort of the higher end cameras like the X100 things like that. But my gut feeling is it'll be a EPL10. Uh, and I'm not under any NDA or anything. I don't know anything more than you guys, so we'll just leave it at that. If I knew what it was, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway, but I really don't in this case. Uh, all that said, I guess those are the most exciting things that are coming up, uh, in the next couple of weeks. But I guess, do you think I'm way off base here, or does anybody know anything more than I do? If you do, let me know. JP says he'd like to see a TG8 with a 1-inch sensor. Wow, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Sorry, my allergies have been acting up, so I'm a little bit off center today, in more ways than one. Uh, I talked about this, I guess, man, it's been a while since I've talked about like a TG8 coming out. The challenge is more technical, right? Because the way the TG8 is designed, it has a zoom, it has a physical zoom lens in it. And if they want to keep that, which is kind of a signature technology in the TG7, is that zoom lens being and still making it so compact and yet having a 25 to 100 equivalent zoom. To do that with a 1-inch sensor, you'd have to substantially increase the size of the zoom. Otherwise, you're going to be like an aperture f5 or f6, like 5.6 or f8. So I don't see that happening. It just technically would be too difficult, and keep the compact size and durability and all of that. I don't think a 1-inch sensor is in OM Systems, pipeline at all. Uh, they're Micro Four Thirds. They're going to stick with that and not mess with any other formats. I get the TG7 series has the 1/2.3. At best, they could maybe move up to a 1/1.7 or 1/1.3. That would make the camera a little bigger, right? That could be a possibility. If they can move to a 1/1.3, they'd have to make the camera thicker at the very least. But with a 1/1.7, they wouldn't have to do too much. It would it would be a little bigger, but not so much that it would be off. But we'll see. If they come out with a TG7 with a 1-inch sensor with a fixed focal length, that could be possible. But then, the only other way to get a reasonable zoom in a 1-inch sensor is to move the whole lens assembly to the front of the camera. Because right now the lens assembly is inside the camera, going in a sort of a horizontal way with a mirror. They'd have, or a prism. To do it, to put a zoom lens on a 1-inch sensor, you'd have, like on the Panasonic whatchamacallit, or the Sony RX1, is it? Or the whatever, the compact Sony camera. And all the other compact cameras that have the lens in the front and the zoom extends out when you turn it on. Just like my, Deluxe 8 and LX100. That's the only way to do it. Okay, let's see. I keep getting these errors. I'm gonna have to update. Hopefully you guys are seeing and hearing me okay. But let me go up to the chat. Wow, there's Adam, you took care of a lot of thank you, Adam, for taking care of whatever that was. Deleted a bunch of messages. But I see Jeff is here. Good to see you. Henning, good to see you. And good morning, Thomas. From Georgia, and Plato, good to see you. It's been a while. And again, thank you, Adam, for taking care of those. And good morning, David. Marcia, always good to see you. Has been too hot here this week. Weather's been really nice in the 80s. And David, hey Dave, how are you? Too bad we had to cancel yesterday morning, so I just kind of spur of the moment threw up that Fort Washington trip. And Jeff, let's see, getting rid of all the trash. Yes, thanks again. And oh, another viewer here, happy to see you. And the Gray Vanzini, good to see you. So, all that said, let's look at a few images and, oops, oh, there's a bunch of stuff here I missed. So the Gray Vanzini, you are familiar with him. Good, good. And Adam says one of the EP or EPL would make sense if they could bring it in a decent price to capitalize on the smaller camera craze. Yes. Like I said, there's a lot of competition under $1,000. So they'd have to really come up with something. I mean, like, look at the Fujifilm XM5. It's a no IBIS, but then you have the 26 megapixel APS-C color science and kind of a retro style, and that sells for $899. And Robert, good to see you. Really good shots yesterday. That was a lot of fun having you out. Robert went with me out to Port Washington yesterday, and then after we went to MGM and got some more shots. I got some lightning shots though. I'll show you those. And I got I got my MGM card, so I didn't have to pay for parking, but I had to go all the way into the casino. Ugh, that was uh that was a pain. But I got my card. I ain't paying $15 to park for nothing. When I spent, well, you spent, thanks, and thank you for dinner. Robert also bought me dinner. But we spent 20 bucks a head on dinner, and then they want us to pay for parking. I'm not I'm not into that. Uh, I mean, I'll pay parking if I have to, but if I can, $15. That's just ridiculous. It used to be free, so it caught me off guard when I pulled in and there was a gate. And I said, "When did you guys start charging for parking?" And it's about a month ago. Oh, and a casino is really an interesting place. You just see all the people in there, and they're all so serious. I I remember when I was younger, I used to go to the casino and it would be a lot of fun. I'd just be having a great time, and joking around and but gosh, people are so serious. Um, things have changed everywhere. And ATR Bear, good morning. And I'd love to see the TGA. Yeah. And yeah, all of the autofocus and megapixel are what the new people look for, and OM will not spend the dollars really highlighting all of the software magic things that they can do. Yeah, they're relying on, their ambassadors and workshops and live streams, basically social media to market their computational features. And I think those serve as a good support mechanism to a really thought out marketing plan. I'm not a marketing expert, but uh, you know, the features in the OM system cameras, the computational ones, for me are not gimmicks. I use them all the time. Use them all the time. And uh, back in the days when it was just basically the art filters, I use those all the time. Not as much now because I enjoy post processing more. But when I was starting out and post processing was a headache, I love these straight out of camera JPEGs using the art filters. And sometimes I still use them, not very often, but sometimes, just to see. And I don't know, but I'm kind of with you on that. And saw a YouTuber who said Owen might come out with a monochrome camera. Interesting. Interesting. I would be definitely on that. Depends on the price. I mean, we all have our limits, right? But uh, I love my Pentax monochrome camera and the images that I take with that. I just love the tonality and experience of shooting with that camera. If that translates to a Micro Four Thirds sensor or OM system camera, I should say, is is questionable because the Pentax is a DSLR, has an optical viewfinder, so the experience is very different than just shooting black and white on a mirrorless camera. Uh, because we have the creative dial on our OM systems, and then we have the monochrome profile on all the OM system cameras. You can just do that. Why make a dedicated monochrome camera? I'm curious how the Ricoh GR monochrome is doing, relatively speaking, because I don't really hear that much hype about that camera anymore. And the Pentax monochrome K3 that I have has been discontinued. So I don't know how popular a monochrome camera would really be, as much as I want one, because we're kind of in a bubble here, right? We're all enthusiasts and we love photography, and we want these really amazing cameras to come out. But a company has to think about the bottom line and what is going to sell when they put it on the shelf, and what is going to sell long term, right? So I don't think we're going to get a monochrome camera. To me, that's just pure speculation. I would definitely buy one. Like I said, depending on the price, we'll have to see. But that's like I said, because we're kind of in a bubble. I'm a enthusiast, right? There hasn't been any solid leaks. Yeah, just like with the OM3, there was no leaks on that at all. Uh, up until almost it was released, really. Yeah, an EPL style, I think so. And Heather says, I was out with a photographer and he had a fixed zoom lens Nikon. After 40 to 50 years of photography, he got rid of all his gear except this one camera. Yeah. So was he a professional like most of his life, or was he just an enthusiast like us? I'm curious. But yeah, I hear that time to time. A lot of photographers, they collect gear like I do. Like I have this huge pile behind me. And I guess at a certain point, you just say, this is all I really need, just this one camera, right? When you're a little bit younger and ambitious and really into it as a hobby, uh, you just kind of get obsessed with buying gear, right? Like I at least I did. And I do think time to time, what if I just got rid of all this stuff, and just shot with the cameras I like my OM3. I could just shoot with that, uh, and I'm done. I don't really need all these other cameras. Or maybe no one cares. I think a lot of OM system, legacy OM system and Olympus enthusiasts care. And Robert says, hoping for an L10 competitor. Interesting. I doubt it. I doubt it, because right now OM Systems doesn't have. They'd have to go back, almost back to Stylus 1, right? To find the lens that they could use. So I don't think they have the bandwidth or the budget to develop a whole new lens for a fixed lens camera like the L10. So I doubt it. I mean, like I said, I'm being very, very conservative and looking at it, trying to look at it from their point of view. How much R&D is it going to cost to create a camera? Because based on what they've been doing, right? The OM1 Mark II was basically, a minor evolution of the OM1 Mark I. The OM5 Mark I, the OM5 Mark II, just minor evolution there. Between that and the original, the one before that, the EM5 Mark III. And then the TGs from the TG4, maybe. Definitely from the TG5, but the TG4, 5, 6, and 7 are basically the same camera with minor updates, right? Uh, what else? The EM10s, yeah, and the EPL series. All of these are just minor updates from one camera to the next. I will say the leap from there was a leap from the EM1 Mark I to the EM1 Mark II was a nice leap. The EM1 Mark III to the OM1 was a really good leap. But those are kind of the exceptions, right? Those are the flagship cameras. I don't see anything else in the lineup where there's a major leap like that, right? You know, like the even the EM5 Mark I to the EM5 Mark II, that was actually a pretty good leap. And that's why if you look back in 2020, I made a video called the Mark II series. The Mark II series, the EM5 Mark II, the EM1 Mark II, the EM10 Mark II. The entire Mark II series from Olympus to me was sort of a pinnacle of Olympus innovation, technology, value, everything. Those were, I think, in my opinion, the very best cameras Olympus ever made. And then minor improvements from there into Mark IIIs and so on. And the only leap since the EM1 Mark II and the EM5 Mark II and the EM10 Mark II, the only leap I think we've really seen is between the EM1 Mark III and the OM1. And even that was only for people that do really birding and wildlife, because now it had subject detect, right? For planes, birds, animals, whatever. That was a pretty substantial update. Right? When I think about it. And you could even go over to Sony, for example. Really, since the NEX7, which came out what, more than 10 years ago, it had the 24 megapixel APS-C sensor. What has changed from the NEX7 to the A6700, right? Uh, Same body style, right? Same sensor, more or less, and really no new features. The big improvement was really in the autofocus. So, I mean, I get there was a lot of technological improvements between the two cameras, but if you want to be really cynical about it, you could even say like the Sony NEX7 was sort of their pinnacle APS-C camera, right? And then there was just progression and autofocus from there. Uh, okay. And David Black says, a camera to celebrate their 90th anniversary of making cameras, what will be unknown is what it will be is unknown to us common people. Yeah. Let's see. And audio video is good. Audio video is okay. Thank you. Everything seems really good. Thank you. Whoops. What? Let me go back up. This. And John follows. Good to see you. And Plato says, through your live streams, I got in contact with John Truman. Oh, okay. We became good friends and do city trips over. That is awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen John lately. He hits me. He tags me sometimes in Flickr, right? He'll like one of my photos. But I haven't heard from him in a long time. I'm glad you guys got to connect and go out and do some shooting. I remember he was really into a lot of black and white photography. Really enjoyed that the last time I saw him. MGM is not free parking. It's $15. It's free if you get an MGM card. Uh, MGM, what's it called? MGM Rewards card that you have to go in the casino and get. They started that about a month ago. So, yeah, they try and get you. So now my personal information is all out there again. Now with MGM, where I live, when I was born, all that stuff, right? Um, and I did not get my LX10 yet. I'm still waiting. And Robin, hey Robin, how are you? Wow, it's been a while. If OM Digital Solution does not engage RobTrek for the next product launch, whatever it is, their loss. Really, Rob should be an ambassador for the brand. You're too kind, Robin. I've always indicated I wasn't that interested in becoming an ambassador. Um, you know, I get there's a few perks, with being an ambassador, but I enjoy being kind of independent, and I I don't want to take responsibility. Basically, that's what it is. I'd rather be independent. But I'm as big a fan of OM System as any of the ambassadors, and I've become good friends with a lot of them because they do travel. They travel around the country, and when they make their way into this area, they always make an effort to reach out to me, which I really appreciate. And we go out together and we do some shooting. So that's always a great. That's kind of as much as I want out of OM System is if their ambassadors are in the area, just send me an email or give me a call and let's go out, Uh, it's not about me getting content because I don't make any content from when I go out with the creators, right? I go out just because I enjoy doing it and then talking about my experience. And the ambassadors are amazing that I've got to meet amazing photographers and really, really enthusiastic about the system, of course. Uh, they have more of the personality type than I do, I think, for that kind of thing. Because I'm a little bit more melancholy, I guess, about camera gear and technology. I mean, I use it all the time and I love it, but for me to say to jump up and down and do handsprings about it is not my game, and I appreciate that. Uh, but if they want to sponsor me for a video or pay for a trip to go out, like Emily got to go on some nice trips with OM Systems with the ambassadors. That would be kind of nice. It'd have to be within, well, it's going to be hard because I have a dog that I can't. It's hard, but yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind that, going on some sponsored trips or trips paid for trips, right? It's like I can't afford to go on trips by myself. And I would have to take a close look at a monochrome. Yeah, we'd have to think about it, right? And when it comes to comp features, I lately stopped using Live ND and bring a set of ND filters. More often than not, it's just not enough in the camera. It's great though. And a real ND grad, yes. So yeah, I use the Live ND and Grad ND pretty sparingly. Time to time, I use it. Uh, but I do bring my own set of ND filters. Like I was doing live comp yesterday, and the minimum shutter speed is half a second, and you can't use the live ND combined with live comp, right? So it's daytime, so I had to use an ND64 filter to get the exposure down to half a second, or in my case, I did 2-second exposures. I should do a video on live comp more than I've done in the past. Because I do have one video I did on live comp probably 7 or 8 years ago. and it hasn't changed really since then, but I think I can do a better job now explaining it than I did, 7 years ago. And good morning, Shri. Good to see you. Too bad you didn't go out to Fort Washington with us. We had a good time. And Adam says, what if you could make OM camera with less bells and whistles, but use the computers inside to focus and make it easy? Easy to get exposure perfect, easy to add filters, UV proof and fun. Uh, well, I don't think they would do that with an interchangeable lens camera. They could do it with a fixed lens camera, like the TG7 is a good example of what you're talking about. It's pretty much simplified, doesn't have a ton of features. Has a couple of specialized features like macro and stuff, but uh, I don't think I don't think that's in their pipeline at all. That's such a different camera than what they've been doing. I think whatever they come out with will definitely be an interchangeable lens camera. And pro architect that dabbled in selling his work has no need for extra funds for sure. He does a ton of travel. Oh, okay. That's awesome. There's so many people that have had such amazing life stories, right? And have been such a success in their life, not only financially, but with, at a more human level. And, whether it's family and friends or uh, whatever other accomplishments. And I don't think I've done anything like that in my life. My life has been a train wreck, to be honest. But I have such respect for people that have done so much in their life. And this sounds like one of those people, right? Uh, and now is reaping the rewards of what they sowed throughout their life. And let's see. C-Star 50 Pro Smart Telescope revealed this week. Okay. It's wide field with Astro, can do Milky Way and deep sky objects. Interesting. That's pretty big range. I wonder if it's going to follow kind of the same trend, or not trend, but the same idea that it's trying to do too much at once, right? I really feel like a dedicated wide field or a dedicated deep sky would be better than having one that can do it all, unless it's at a very low price point for people just getting started. Rob, have you used the Clori clip filters? I've been wondering about them. I still have my 100. I have not. I think you're talking about the ones that clip in on top of the sensor. I've never done that. Uh, they would come in handy, I guess, for the super wide angles like the Olympus fisheye 1.8. But for everything else, I just buy the screw-in filters. And if you're talking about the leaf filters and setting up a matte box of some kind where you drop the filters in front of the lens, but then because of the matte box, you get vignetting on the corners because of the wide angle. It gets complicated, right? uh, then the Clori filters make sense, and I thought about it. The problem I have is very difficult to get more than a 10-stop ND filter for those clip-on. Let me just look at let me just look at the Clori filter real quick. Make sure we're talking about the same thing. Kalari, sorry, I mispronounced it. Yeah, so we're talking about these things that clip in over the sensor. Uh, so that's an ND64. Here's a whole kit for 300. Oh, this one's made by Case, but ND64. So this is a uh, this is a 10 stop filter, I believe. So I typically need more than 10 stops. You know, if I want more than 10 stops, I'll never be able to do it with a clip-in filter. But I don't know. I haven't heard anybody really have issues with using these clip-in filter things because the only application I would have is for my fisheye lenses is to use a clip-in filter. And it would be my 8mm fisheye, or maybe if you have one of the rectilinear lenses like the 7 to 14, you wouldn't be able to use a where you can't use a screw-on filter. Now the 8 to 25 has, I think, a 67 or 72. It has some. It has a filter thread on there. I'd almost rather buy an 8 to 25 where I could use filters on the front than spend money on these clip-in filters. So I'd say if you're using leaf filters now, like I said, I assume these are yeah, 100. You said 100 by 100. I would switch over to just regular screw-in filters. You know, like I went out yesterday with my set of 58mm ND filters, and I ended up only really needing the ND64 because we have live comp. But using live comp gives you a little bit different look than actually doing a long like exposure using bulb mode. So I'm gonna have to now. I haven't done a lot of long exposure, but I am noticing a slight difference between live comp and actually doing a long exposure. And I'd like to do long exposures with some of my other cameras as well, which don't have live comp. So these clip-in filters, you need like an ND 100,000 to do daytime long exposures. And you'd never be able to do that with a clip-in filter. The best you can do with a clip-in filter is 10 stops. And that's definitely not enough for daytime, broad daylight type photography. And my OM3 has been very popular, maybe an OM3 Mark II. That would surprise me because the OM3 just came out last year. What would they do with a Mark II to improve it? Because it's not going to have it, they're not putting out new sensors. Um, yeah, that would be a long shot. And then it would probably be a big disappointment if they did come out with a Mark II OM3. And you just Google them, they have 2,100 employees. Wow, that's more than I thought. And regardless of whether they deserve it or not, they are going to get slammed for repacking the same camera. Yes, they will get slammed. I mean, to be fair, an EPL10 with OM5 Mark II guts would be kind of a new combination, right? But it is repackaging two different things. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us. I mean, the OM3 was a huge surprise. Huge surprise to me. I just could not believe it. And it's been a great chance over there. It's been an amazing camera for me and a lot of people, I think, that buy it have really enjoyed it. And Adam says the M10 series, you could argue, started taking some steps backwards at 3 and 4 releases as they improved some features and then they removed some others. Yes. Uh, So, I guess it is curious why they removed features that are clearly just software driven, right? Because it's the same processor. I think they were just trying to simplify the menu because if you remember at the time, Olympus was getting some of the worst reviews on their menu system, right? Meaning anybody that used it hated it. So I think they were trying with the EM10 Mark III and 4 was to simplify the menu system and not have so many features in there that a lot of enthusiasts really appreciated. I can tell you if the M10 Mark II, that was my first Micro Four Thirds camera, didn't have all of that customization like the what did they call it back then? The My Sets, right? But we're talking basically custom modes and a few other things. I would have definitely probably would not been into the system as much as I am because that was one of the first things I did with my EM10 was set up all the My Sets and use all the custom features, right? Uh, and but I really enjoyed the customizability of the camera. So yeah, it was definitely a downgrade in my opinion when they went to the EM10 Mark III. Because see, I never bought the 3 or 4, and I was really into buying everything Micro Four Thirds at the time. But I was like, this is not better than my EM10. And John, good to see you. And Heather said, I find it funny you spend thousands on additional bodies you don't really need, but get way worked up on $15. It is ironic, isn't it? But I really believe that it's not the big purchases that set you back. It's all the little tiny ones. Death by a thousand slices. You know, subscription fees. Like I have Netflix, but I pay for ads so I can get it. I watch ads so I can get a discount on Netflix. Uh, my PPA membership, which I only get for the insurance, and then the um, that's all I have really, and then I pay for internet. So, oh, I just added frickin' YouTube to it, so I don't have to see ads. I forget what I'm paying for that. $10 a month? I can't remember. That was worth it though. And then I never buy coffee when I go out to have breakfast, because it's like $4 for coffee, $5 sometimes for a cup of coffee. It's brutal. But yeah, I feel like it's all these little things that I don't spend money on. I try to avoid parking. I always try to combine my trips when I drive, so I'm not spending up more on gas than I need to. And I calculate, how many miles is it to the next gas station that's a little bit cheaper? Does that price difference offset the gas I'm going to use to, you know what I mean? But it is kind of ridiculous. But all these little things, right? You never get that money back. Whereas a camera gear, I can always sell it and get maybe 50% of it back. Uh, but yeah, we justify our purchases in different ways, right? Whether it makes sense or not. Lumix sent an email to those of us waiting to buy the L10 from Panasonic store that inventory will be available on September 9th. Oh, okay. That's if you buy directly from Panasonic. We'll see what the dealers get because the dealers get, very limited number of stock, and depending on how many pre-orders they had and where I am in that line to get mine, we'll see. I mean, if I'm waiting a year to get my freaking camera, that would kind of suck. I might cancel it because another camera will come out that'll be better in a year. Who knows? And Robin would both be great ambassadors, but yeah, I wouldn't want the responsibility of the restraints that go with it. Yes. You should do a video on live comp. Yep, live comp and live time. Yeah, I have. Like I said, I have one from 6 or 7 years ago that's pretty good. And then Sri says, I was dropping off my niece at college and dorm room. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's important. Because Sri is local to me, so he could have gone to the photo club thing that we set up. And Angela, play for one. Good to see you. Angelo, yes, got it. And and David says, don't forget to like. Thank you. I appreciate that. And JM Carb says, I'm looking for a little more serious about sorry. I'm starting to think I'm a little dyslexic too, going along with the dementia. Anyway, I'm looking to get a little more serious about macro. I have the Olympus 30 macro. What lens do you recommend that is a good step up? The 60, 90, the new Laowa accent panning. Okay, so if you're shooting with an OM system camera, just stay with the OM system lenses. The 60 or the 90 would be a nice step up. So if your budget allows, get the 90. Just skip the 60. If your budget does not allow, you can get the 60 and you'll be fine. One other lens, it depends. When you say you want to get serious about macro, are you talking about uh, like really hyper macro, like 4 or 5 time magnification rather than just 1 to 1? Then we're talking about very specialized lenses. Like I have one somewhere. It's a 4.5x manual focus, and you need to use a focusing rail with it. So you can get really I forget what it's, one of one images. Let me show you his Instagram. But if you're talking about bugs and insects, I would go to the 90 macro if you can, if it's in your budget. One of the most amazing macro photographers, though, is a viewer here. Where's the search button here? Ethan, yeah, Ethan Beckler. I have one. He sent me a print. I have it hanging over in my hallway over there. So go just search for 101 images on Instagram. You can see some of his work here. This is 200 stacked images. I mean, these are little grains of garnet and sand. It's freaking amazing. There's a jumping spider. Oh, I love how I got that on a reflection. I don't even know what this is. But there's the sand. These are like, yeah, these are scales on a butterfly. It's crazy. It's like microscopic. So I would even say it's not even macro, it's microscopic type photography. But I've done similar with like a $150 lens. But let's get back to your general question. 60 is a very nice step up from the 30. It's no harm in having both. I've thought about buying the 30 because I have the 60 now. You can improve the magnification of the 60 millimeter with this thing. I use this time to time. It's only 20 bucks, but it's a little diopter thing, you know, that you clip on the front of your lens. And I get about 1.5x magnification on my 60 millimeter macro. You can go even further and start putting extension tubes as well on the 60 macro. So the 60 macro is a really, really nice step up in of itself at a relatively reasonable price. But if it's in your budget, just go to the 90, because everything you can do with the 60, you can do with the 90. You can put extension tubes, you can put these diopters on it to get even more magnification. So that's the way I would go. And I would avoid anything from Panasonic and whatever. I've never heard of Axons. The Laowa Axons, yeah, I would, because those are manual focus, if I recall. And if you're gonna go manual focus, you should probably consider a much higher magnification manual focus lens. Like I bought a 4.5x. I'll show you the one I bought. Um, it's this one. So they have it for Micro Four Thirds. This one, it's on sale. You know, it's been like $149 forever. Uh, so there's no rush to get this deal, but this is pretty amazing. And I'll show you one that I got with this. This was let me see my macro shots. Yeah, this one. These are little grains of sand that I took using that lens. I'm telling you, these are tiny. It's almost like dust. Uh, and then the 60 macro lens, let me see. You know, I don't do this quite as much, but you know, these are all in-camera stacks. But yeah, if you're gonna get serious about macro, uh, those two lenses, and then you may want to consider the 4.5x lens I just showed, but you're also going to probably want to get down the road Helicon Focus. I think it's about 100 bucks for that. It's a dedicated macro stacking software. And then you also want to get a macro rail. Uh, like this, if you get that 4.5x lens, macro lens, then you're going to have to get one of these. This is a Nissi. These are about 100 bucks. You want to get a good one of these. Spend like 100 bucks or more for one of these. Uh, then you can kind of really get into it. Okay. Speaking of the TG7, had a great time whitewater rafting, taking the OC River in Tennessee yesterday. Cool. And the 60 is a no-brainer for anyone interested in macro. Yes. I'm just saying, if your budget allows it, just go with the 90. You can skip the 60 if you get the 90. In Rodtrick, I use my M5 III as my everyday camera, and I have a G9 II for sports wildlife. I only occasionally use in-camera focus stacking. Okay. Then if you're focus bracketing on your own, then you're taking more than 15 shots, I would imagine. Yeah, the 60 macro or the 90. Nothing changed there. And good morning, Darko. Good to see you. And yes, the 60 gets the job done for sure. Yes. And sometimes I regret buying the EM10 Mark IV. I miss the MySets. Yeah. I guess that's one of the first things I did on my EM10 Mark II. And the L10 Penny, no, it's not here yet. And is anyone out there that can do screen replacement on an older TG camera? I don't know. I don't know anyone. Uh, and I think there is a YouTube Lite now, some free movies in there. Ah, okay. Is it worth waiting for the Penny L10? Well, only you can answer that, right? It's a very niche camera, in my opinion. I wouldn't, I think if somebody just wants a little travel everyday camera, it's great. And if it's their only camera, it fits a lot of, checks a lot of boxes as your only camera. But if you're an enthusiast, it definitely needs to be a second camera, right? Not something that you're going to use every day. My everyday camera is going to be an interchangeable lens camera because I want to go out and do different things. But I like to take out like my Deluxe 8, which is an LX100 Mark II. When I want to travel really light, I'm going out with family and friends, and I just want to capture snapshots of, you know, like uh, birthday parties, things like that. The Owen Mark III is just a rumor or substantially real in the works. I seriously doubt it. I mean, I'm sure it's in the works, but I don't think that's what's going to come September 9th. I just don't see it. I would be really surprised if it's an OM1 Mark III or an OM1X, with the built-in grip. I would be very surprised if it was either one of those. And Lee uses both the 60 and the 90. Yes, if your budget allows, get them both, right? Depends how serious you are about macro. You know, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to get them all. I mean, that's always the answer, right? Buy both. And for Nikon 85mm DX f3.5 macro is a lot of fun, yes. Um, and if you do a video on live comp, would you please show your workflow for infrared? Ooh, okay. I haven't done a lot of infrared lately. It's tough. I'm struggling myself, so I'm not a good person to make a video on infrared photography. Yes, Ethan's work is outstanding. I agree. And the 60 micro f mount full frame with macro ring also is fun on the Z7. Yes, I have the 60 micro f mount. I also have the 100mm. I think it's it's a 105 f2.8 macro, or the Nikon calls it micro lens. Gosh, I haven't shot my Nikon in a long time. And the Raynox extender is cool, yes. This is not made by Raynox, but I don't see any difference in image quality between using this and not using it. So bare lens versus using this. I'm just getting 1.5x macro. I always say wow when I see Ethan's work. Yes, I agree. Rob, do you still rail your macro tabletop pics? Yes. Even with focus stacking, yes. Uh, because of that high magnification, assuming I'm using the 4.5x macro lens and taking pictures of grains of sand, you have to take so many shots. You're not going to get away with 15 shots. Uh, you take the one extreme, you look at a lot of Ethan's images, those are like stacks of 200 images. So in-camera stacking is just not going to cut it. Now, when we're talking about using the 60 macro or the 90 macro lens for like bugs and butterflies and flowers, whatever, that in-camera focus stacking, I use that probably 90% of the time. I never bother with Helicon focus. But if I'm going to use very high magnification, you have to take, 30 to 100 images in the focus bracketing and then use the rail and do really, really minor steps and then use something like Helicon focus. Otherwise, you're going to get too many what they call holes in the stacking where, like two things on the same focal plane, one will be out of focus and the other will be in focus, when it's doing the stacking. And the 30 macro is a good value, but you have to get so close to the subject that it's hard to get any light on the subject. So yeah, the 30 macro is more about capturing a little bit of the environment around whatever it is. So it allows you to get very, very close, but still have a pretty wide field of view. So it's a little bit different application than say the 60 macro. The 60 and the 90 macro, the 60 macro in particular is designed to give you a nice one-to-one ratio with a decent working distance, meaning you can be about this far away from the subject and get a one-to-one magnification. Whereas on the 30 macro, you have to be like this close to get a one-to-one magnification. So the 30 macro has a different it's a different tool, right? The 30 macro, while it is capable of doing one-to-one, I would say it's not really designed for that. It's designed more to allow you to give you very, very close focus, but still maintain a pretty wide field of view. So you get a very different image. So if you're trying to achieve one-to-one ratio, don't buy the 30 macro, buy the 60 or the 90. The 90 will give you 2x magnification. But if you just want very close-up photography with excellent focus stacking ability, the 30 macro is really good. The 60 is a little more compressed view with more working room. And then the 90, of course, is the pinnacle of lenses. Probably the finest macro lens ever made. IM Systems just did a live talk. I assume you meant OM Systems just did a live talk with a slime fungi photographer. Very interesting. Okay, I'll have to check that out. And the 60 micro Olympus is a great value, yes. So not to mention the 60 macro is probably a half, if not 1/3 the price of the 90. But like I said, it just depends on your budget. Money no object, buy the 90. And the 60 macro is very compact, right? I'm reorganizing my gear. So everything's kind of in disarray today. But yeah, the 60 macro is very compact. Very easy to carry, take with you everywhere. And then the diopter I have, if you go to robtrek.com/deals, I don't have it on that page. I might, I don't know. Anyway, you can buy this lens everywhere for about 400 bucks. But that's with the diopter. And I get about 1.5x roughly with this. And it's only 20 bucks. And then if I add extension tubes, I can get the magnification up to about 1.7, 1.8, I believe is what I measured. Okay. And Anthony says, if my guess is right, OM System is soon announcing the most weighted camera from OM System. Hopefully my guess is right. The PenF is on its way. Yeah, I seriously doubt it. But they surprise us with the OM3. Maybe they'll surprise us with the Pen F and start to become known as the go-to camera system for retro, excellent built cameras. Because the OM3, man, this thing is rock solid. This feels so good in the hands. All the dials, the switches. I mean, every other camera is just pales next to this in terms of the feel and tactile kind of feel of this camera. And I expect the same time we'll see new weather sealed premium prime lenses as the 45-17. They have the 17 already. So maybe the 45, or is it the other way around? One of those they already have weather sealed. Because they when they launched the OM3, they launched the 17 and the 25 weather sealed primes. So it'd have to be the 45 and the 75. And Wayne says, I have the Nikon Z mount 105. Ooh, nice. Nice. Heather says there's a new competitor for stacking software mentioned in the OM Talks Live. The expert said that he's been testing and is very impressed. It's only $59. Yeah, there's another one out there I'm familiar with, the Zarine stacker. And I tried both, Zarine, and then I use Helicon. And it's been a while. But I ultimately, it's basically a coin cost between Zarine and Helicon. I can't remember what it was specifically that I said, okay, I'm going to do Helicon. Maybe I had a discount code or something. I don't know. But to me, yeah, I think it's basically a coin cost between the two. You're going to get good results with either one. Anthony said, I don't think we'll see a new flagship until next year, and we might not see until the end of next year. I really do not know. I'm just guessing. Yeah, I agree. And sorry, Rob, being late today. Have you been shooting this week? Have you shown? No, I haven't shown the images yet today. And Anthony, I think if they bring out an all-new, smaller, lighter Pen F style camera, it will cause a lot of excitement in Micro Four Thirds users. Hopefully, when it gets announced. I think so. I agree with you. I think a lot of the legacy OM system Olympus camera shooters will definitely be very excited, like us, right? Whether or not it makes sense to come out with a camera like that from a business standpoint of view is a different metric altogether. So that's why I don't think they're going to do it. But we'll see. Who thought the OM3 was going to come out again? And hope you'll be smaller than the L10. Yes. And Marcia says, I've always had difficulty with the 1:1 on the 60 Olympus. What am I doing wrong? Okay, so yeah, this is confusing, right? So I'm going to turn the camera on. There is a switch here on the camera. See if I can show it with different focus limiters, right? So this is the setting you use if you just want to use the lens like a regular 60mm lens. You set it there. And then the next one is, I can't read. Well, anyway, you didn't ask about these other two. These are focus limiters for different ranges. So 1:1 is all the way here, right? So what you do is you flip the switch, and you'll notice when I let go, it snaps back. What that does is it pushes the focus element so that the lens is now at its minimum focusing distance in 1:1. And then what you have to do is you get as close as you can until you start to see things in focus. So maybe I can, I don't think I'm going to be able to show you live. Um, I didn't turn on my HDMI thing. But anyway, you just sort of look through your EVF or on your screen, and you get as close as you can until whatever it is you want in focus without pushing without doing any autofocusing. So once again, you flip this and you let go. That puts the lens to its minimum focusing distance, which is about here, and that'll give you 1:1. And then you move the camera as close as you can physically to the subject until it's in focus. And then once it's in focus, then you can engage the focus stacking or bracketing, right? Typically what I do is I get it in focus and then I back the camera back a little bit and then I engage the autofocus. So you just have to practice a little, but that's how I do it. And I've been using my TG850, oh, classic, for macro and TG4 sometimes, even though I just got a 60 macro. Not as good as IQ, but easy to keep in the pot. Yes, I agree. And Rapid Raw Editor has been upgraded and has AI scan other subject masking that works well, in my humble opinion, and is free. Oh, I'm not familiar with Rapid Raw. That's cool. Uh, you know, we really do need some. There's always been very good alternatives that are free to, edit your photos. And, the one that I recall was Raw Therapy is very popular. And then there's one other one. Can't remember. Because OM Workspace is really a great photo editor tool, but it doesn't have any local adjustments. Like if I want to just brighten up this part, right, the top of the image, or if I want to brighten up this person in the image, there's no way to locally adjust individual things in the frame. And that is really, really, that's what really takes your photo editing to the next level if you like to edit your photos. And unless you're a purist, right, these are tools that are really, really makes a difference. And things like Raw Therapy, and I forget the other one. I think Affinity is free now, right? Canva or something. These are all great alternatives to OM Workspace. Where OM Workspace shines really is all of the color science and color profiles, art filters, the seeing the EXIF data and focus points. Since it's specialized on OM system cameras, you have access to basically all of the capabilities of OM system cameras right through OM Workspace, but it just does not have local adjustments. And it's arguably a very slow software, right? It takes a while to edit things sometimes. And the workflow is not perfect, but it's free and it does a good job. Macro Studio is the new stacking software. Okay. Interesting. I'll have to try it. And Adam says, I normally edit RAW files, but using EP7 color dial, I am now editing JPEGs a bit for exposure and sometimes clarity. And any tips on things to avoid? On phone, I just fiddle, but in DX, so cautious. Yeah. Well, if you're just editing, I'm using the EP7 color dial, I'm now editing JPEGs a bit for exposure and sometimes clarity. I think that, yeah, you just have to set your expectation with a JPEG file. You're not going to be able to recover highlights or push shadows at all. Less than one stop is all you're going to be able to push. And a lot of times things are already clipped, so you can't even push them. So just keep in mind the limitations of a JPEG. The other thing is white balance and changing colors. So you can desaturate and you can add a little saturation, but that flexibility is also mitigated. And then white balance, because the color information is very limited, if you want to change the white balance of a JPEG, it can look pretty bad. So, but if you get the exposure you want in camera, just doing some minor tweaks to that and clarity is all you need. Why was it the AI? Oh, sorry, that's not for me. Did I miss a question or is that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm all caught up. Let me show you some pictures. So Tuesday, I went out with uh, a group out to Shenandoah, set up a little hike, and we did a waterfall, we did sunset, and we did astro. So I was helping everybody with their camera settings and stuff. I was dealing with everything: Canon, Nikon, Sony. No, actually, there wasn't any Sony shooters there. I was the only one. I had my Sony and my OM3 with me. There's me. So I'm trying to throw leaves down the river or down this stream to get leaves into the. But what ended up happening is the leaves would just sink under the water and they wouldn't stay on top. So that turned out to be kind of a futile exercise. But someone captured a shot of me doing that. And there's my OM3 hanging off. And that was from yesterday. That's not a great shot. This one here is exposure bracket. So I blended 3 images in Nik Collection HDR and created this image. I just like the processing of Nik Collection. So I can do most of my processing in Nik Collection that I want to do when I'm doing exposure bracketing, and then don't have to do much once I bring it back into Photolab other than to crop it. So I just edit, in this case I edit in Nik Collection, then I cropped it in Photolab and then export it out as a JPEG. This is another wide angle shot, square crop. This is one of the tunnels in Fort Washington. We tried to do sunsets and it was just so cloudy. Fortunately, we got a little bit of color, but this didn't last very long, just a few minutes. Ironically, I don't have a picture of it, but the best shot of the night was taken with an iPhone. They just did an amazing job with just their iPhone. When I looked at it, I was like, "Oh man, that's some bullshit." This is unbelievable. And she's not even a photographer. She came along as, she was the wife of one of the people that came, and she went there to just read her book, right? She didn't plan to take any pictures, but she just took her phone out and took a picture, and it was the best one. This is a 2 exposures. I took one long exposure and one shorter exposure. So one of these is only about 10 seconds, and the other one is a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes of exposure. And I was using live comp, and it was dark, so I didn't need to use an ND filter. Live comp 2 seconds, and then so I ran one live comp for about 10 or 15 seconds, then I ran another one for about 5 minutes until I got the lightning strike. And they were also doing fireworks, so that's why there's all this smoke and everything. So they were doing fireworks while I was taking the shot of the lightning. And then, in the spirit of Michael Kenna, I did a square crop and a long exposure. So this is one of the inspirations I got from Michael Kenna, is to try this kind of photography yesterday. So long exposure, square crop, black and white. Oh, that's the group. Okay, so this one here is about 10 minutes on live comp. So I had live comp set to 2 seconds, and I was using an ND64 filter because it was still daylight, but very cloudy because as you can see, it was all clouds. Uh, and then again, square crop, long exposure, strong influence here from Michael Kenna. But I love how this came out. The water is, got really nice tones and textures in it here. This is the Potomac River. And then the sky, of course, have these beautiful streaks. The clouds were just almost standing still. I mean, they were hardly moving at all. As you can see right in this little pocket here, the clouds in 10 minutes hardly moved at all. But up here, we got some decent streaks. But this one cloud only moved from here to here in 10 minutes. That's pretty slow, relatively speaking. Let's see. And then this one here is this I'm reprocessing shots that I took earlier this year. This is when I went to Baltimore. I'm still not 100% happy with the editing here. This is the raw image. So it's very flat, but I like the geometry and the repeating patterns and, yada, yada. But there's no depth, right? It's just very, very flat. So I tried to do some editing here. It came out okay, but I'm not so happy with it. And then up here, the flag, I enhanced that so it stands out. So this adds a little bit of a human element because nobody's out. Everybody's sleeping in, I guess. What time did I take this? This is, yeah, 7 in the morning. So everybody's sleeping in. This is the raw image. I didn't actually ever process this one before, but this is sort of my first attempt at the Michael Kenna type look. Square crop, black and white. But this was not a long exposure, obviously, because there's a bird in there. But I tried to, like I said, I went back and I tried to find some long exposure photography, and I ran across this one. And so this is actually not a bad shot. It's not perfect, obviously, but this I thought the processing I did was pretty good. So that's the original. So I cropped out this pole, and then I had to balance all the negative space, and I came up with this. And it was tough bringing back any texture in the sky because it was completely gray. As you can see, there's very, very little here. Uh, and this is from July last year or 2 years ago. David Crooks probably remembers this when we were in a lightning storm during the fireworks. So I reprocessed this again in the spirit of Michael Kenna because I was looking for long exposure photographies in my catalog and I just hardly have any. This is one of them, but this came out okay. It was tough, excuse me. It was tough getting the cloud texture and stuff in there, but this is not a long exposure photography in the sense like Michael Kenna does. This one here was a high-res shot mode to get the smooth waterfall effects. This is a total fail. This is just awful, this shot here, but I was trying. This is another image I reprocessed, and it's very similar to Michael Kenna's work. But Michael Kenna has an eye for isolating the subject. So he would have found a frame where, like, the problem with this image is I have this building here and these white canopies over here. It would have been nice if it was just the ship on the dock. Then it would definitely be very Michael Kenna. So if I wanted to improve this just a little, I would crop out that building right there to start. So that's a little better just right there. But the way I framed it and where I was standing, I really didn't get a good shot. This is just a ICM shot, intentional motion blur, or intentional camera movement. It's okay. This is another Michael Kenna attempt, and it is a long exposure. I forget, this was way back when I had my Panasonic Lumix S5. This is what's the 20-second exposure. So not very long. But it was at night, so there wasn't a lot going on. This building is now finished and occupied because this image is from 2020. When did I take this? 2023. So three and a half years ago I took this picture. Again, it's okay. I like the lighting, but let's see. Is there anything else? Oh, this one is also a long exposure. Probably, what is this? Another 20-second exposure. It's okay. But this is all I had. This is from last night. No, this is from last year. When is this take? Yeah, last year, November. This is a 30-second exposure, so I didn't use live comp or anything. And this is an airplane here. I was using my star effects filter, so I got all these speculars on all the points of light. So 30-second exposure, it's okay. These are all very experimental shots. This is another one I did. This was last year also, right? 20-second exposure. I probably didn't have my ND filter with me, so that's probably what happened. This is another long exposure, I think. This one is 20 seconds with the 12 to 40. So yeah, I didn't have my ND filters back then. Nothing special here either, but I'm trying. This is a long exposure. I'm embarrassed to show these, honestly, but I thought I'd just share them with you. This is about a 30-second exposure. Wide angle, of course. This is an astro shot from Shenandoah, and this is the raw image up here. Somebody asked me, did I do stacking and all of that? I said, no, I just took a single shot. So that's the raw image up here, and this is the processed image up here. But the difference is that I used the LED light to illuminate the trees for the foreground so that I could get the exposure for the Milky Way. So that's really the only thing special about this shot was I used an LED light. So it's a little more obvious here where I was illuminating things. Okay, so this is the actual waterfall in all its glory. This is not a long exposure, I don't think. I think this is yeah, this is 0.17 seconds. So handheld. I did all of these waterfall shots handheld. And this is a high-res shot mode. So high-res shot mode combined with slow shutter speed. And what that does is it gets rid of a lot of the artifacts that you can get sometimes with high-res shot mode. But you get the effect of like a maybe a 20-second exposure, but you can do it handheld with high-res shot mode. So it's a really good technique. I'll have to elaborate on this a little bit when I do my live comp. I'll probably have to throw in high-res shot mode too. This is just a crop of a high-res shot mode, but I believe this is, yeah, this is also 0.17 seconds. But a lot of times when you do high-res shot mode and with a fast shutter speed, you start to get artifacts in the high-res shot. But if you can slow the shutter speed down, you mitigate a lot of the artifacts you might get. But then you have to have a very steady hand or be on a tripod, right? Oh, that's my friend. That went with me. This is the waterfall shot. This one is also a high-res shot mode, so she was very still. And so I was able to get this shot. This was 1/40th of a second high-res shot mode. So I wonder if we can see the, oops. No, you don't really see the artifacts here because they improved the algorithm in the OM1 over the EM1 Mark III. But I still get artifacts sometimes. Anyhow, this is the same waterfall. This was also this was a regular shot. This was not a high-res shot mode. 0.17 seconds. You can see a guy sitting up here. And then that's the same astro shot I showed you. This was the sunset in Shenandoah. So we had, you know, and I'm reviewing a wide-angle lens for a lens company. You'll see it. The video will be out next week. This will be one of the images in there. I just can't say what it is until it they actually release it. But it's in a few days. I think 2 more days. The 25th is when it's the actual launch. I don't know if I have the video out by the 25th, but let's see. So yeah, so in this photo walk, I set up the waterfall, astro, and sunset all in one trip. So it was an all-day trip, but we all had a lot of fun. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the group. So we have a Sony. There's a Sony. This is OM Systems, OM1 Mark II. She was shooting a Nikon and she was shooting a Canon. I think I showed all of these last week, I think. These are just some shots. I was just trying to experiment a little bit because if you look at, you know, the general, my general photography, a lot of my instincts for commercial, because I do commercial real estate photography professionally, right? And my instincts are always to get the line straight, the horizon level, to have the sensor parallel with the focal plane or the subject. So I want the focal plane and the sensor, and thereby the focal plane to be parallel with the subject. And then level and plumb, everything has to be perfectly straight. So this is a good example of A typical shot I would take for a client, right? With respect to the technique, the lines are straight, all of that. So I tried to experiment a little bit with different angles, and I don't know. This is my normal, get the line straight, the horizon level, the focus plane parallel with the subject. Very, very boring shot. This shot relies on the very high contrast black and white, the vignetting. It relies on a lot of very, what do you call it? It's relying on the aesthetics rather than the actual content of the image. The only thing I thought that was interesting about this shot really was the sort of beat up car here in front of a very pristine building. But it's not a very good shot overall, and it relies too much on the vignetting and black and white processing that I did to draw any attention to it. Like this shot, there's just really nothing in here that makes the shot interesting other than the processing I did, right? The heavy vignette, the high contrast. Now this one is something a little bit different than I normally do, right? And this is not something I would deliver to a client, for example. So I have the same heavy, gritty, heavy vignette processing like the other shots, but this time I'm trying to do frame within a frame. I'm trying to create angles and a different perspective by pointing the camera up so that the subject is now, it's not on the parallel with the focal plane, right? But I was using enough depth of field that it doesn't matter that the focal plane. So I got keystoning errors here that I would never do for a client, things like that. And the horizon's not quite level. So this shot is kind of in the right direction for me to kind of expand my creativity or creative artistic flair and get away from my instincts as a commercial real estate photographer. So these are very, very experimental shots. This is another one, very experimental. I'm shooting at an angle where the sensor is not parallel with the subject. So we have these keystoning errors. There's a lot of interesting elements, right? It's a lot of geometry here, lines and angles. There's good tonality with the brick and the steel and glass, and really nice cloud texture. So this has a lot of elements. And then of course the processing is a little bit over the top, but again, this is very, very different than what I would normally do for a client. And then here I was experimenting with some long exposure. This is my backyard. Before I went out and did the ones like I showed you with the lighthouse earlier. Uh, so as a photographer, as an enthusiast, I'm trying to improve my photography, because I know a lot of you guys say my photography is great and it's fine, but it really isn't. It is nowhere near the level of people like Michael Kenna and all the other legendary master photographers that we can name. I'm nowhere near that level. And I just started looking at my photos, going through my catalog and saying, what is it about my photos that I think suck, right? And time after time after time, it's always a couple of things. And I'm telling you this because I think it's important that you're very critical of your own work. If you want to improve your photography, if you're just going out and enjoying the time, the photo walk, shutter therapy, as Robin likes to say, you can ignore all this. It doesn't matter. Just go out and have fun and take pictures, right? But I'm trying to improve my photography. So if we go back and look at my Instagram feed, let me go down a little bit further. There's a theme here, right? Straight lines, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame, straight lines, fill the frame, horizon is level, split horizon. There's very little creative photography here. I get it that, I certainly have, my technical skill as a photographer is pretty advanced, right? My post-processing skill set is pretty high, right? It's pretty advanced. And but my creative side, yeah, I'm no better than anybody else. So while I can certainly demonstrate, a very high technical level of skill in post-processing and image capturing and exposure, I have no talent when it comes to actually capturing a very interesting image or a very powerful image, an image that tells a story and that's what I'm gonna try and focus, at least for now, until I don't feel like it anymore. I don't know. Who knows? Our we're human beings and our emotions change and how we feel about things change. But like I said here, basically this is 8 millimeter fisheye, so we have some curvature, but essentially the lines are straight, the horizon is level. I'm splitting the frame 50-50, good use of negative space. I'm doing frame within a frame with this tree. So technically it's a very good image. Is anybody going to buy this image or put this in a museum or in a gallery? I seriously doubt it. You know what I mean? Uh, so all of my images, like this one, leading lines, symmetry, framing, motion blur, technically very good picture. Is it going to go in a gallery or an exhibit? No, right? Nothing special about this photo. Uh, and then all of my wildlife photography, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame. You know what I mean? Even these photos, fill the frame, symmetry, reflections. Uh, anyhow, so it's important to master the basics of composition, the rule of thirds, symmetry, you know, angles and triangles, whatever, right? Balance of light, color, weight, getting the exposure right. Once you've kind of achieved all of that, right? You have the basics down, you can get the exposures you want, your technical skill of capturing just about anything gets up there. You really have to be, this is where I'm at. I need to get to that next level in my photography. So I'm going back, and I've always, time to time, gone back and looked at our legendary photographers. I have a bookmark list on my in my Chrome here. But I'm very frustrated with my photography. It hasn't changed for years and years. Now, I've only been shooting for 13 years now, not very long compared to many of you who've been shooting for decades. But that's my goal this year, and I'm just telling you this because I think, because the stream's not about me. I think it's important you guys really look at your photos and try and be very critical and look at the photos, take your very best shots and say, what do I like about this? What do I not like about this? Would anybody hang this in a gallery or an exhibit, right? I mean, I think that's something, if you really want to improve your photography, because at this point, if you achieve a certain level in your photography and technical skill in capturing exposure and post processing, then what's left? What's left is the actual photo itself. Is it any good? Right? And that's why it's like when somebody can just use an iPhone and take an amazing picture because they have an eye for composition, compositional anchors, storytelling, all of these things, right? The gear and all of that doesn't matter. And that's why I think when you look at the legendary and master photographers, both present day living and in the past, their photographs are going to stand the test of time and they're going to be in books and galleries, exhibits, museums, whatever, uh, forever. Whereas the kind of photographs I'm taking are just going to just vanish in digital, you know, infinity, and nobody's ever going to look at them again. Certainly not after I die. And that's why I don't have really a robust backup system for saving my images because my photography doesn't really matter right now. It's not that important. Uh, so I want you guys to find some inspiration if you're looking at photography as more than just a hobby and enjoying, as a pastime and enjoying it. If you really want to improve your photography, try and find someone that will give you inspiration. Uh, Look at photos. Don't go to Instagram and look at photos. A lot of the photos on Instagram are just garbage, okay? Um, but if you do find the photographer that you like and they have an Instagram account, of course, follow that. But Google search things like legendary photographers for architecture, and you'll get a nice list. Or master photographers in street photography, or master photographers in macro, whatever your genre is. If there's a genre that you enjoy and want to improve, try to find a try to find a photographer that is a master in that particular genre and look for inspiration there. And in the beginning, just try to master the technique that they were using, which will inherently mean that you have to copy what they're doing, right? Try and duplicate what they're doing, but only in the sense of being able to master that technique. So when I saw Michael Kenna's work, I'm trying to duplicate that technique, master that technique that he uses to get the look that he has in his images, which are very soft. I mean, the easy part was just square crop because he shoots with a Hasselblad, but film camera, but and black and white. But now I'm trying to master the technique to get that very kind of soft, surreal look to the long exposure, and then also isolating the subject using long exposure. And once I've kind of mastered that technique, then I'm going to try and expand on that and incorporate that into something that might be uniquely my own style. So that when people look at my photos, they'll say, yeah, there's certainly inspiration here from Michael Kenna. There's also some inspiration here from, say, Yusuf Karsh. And then, because my thought was initially, Michael Kenna shoots a lot of very normal focal lengths, sometimes short telephoto, 80 millimeters to isolate the subject and then use long exposure. What I was thinking was something along the lines of maybe, because I love to shoot wide angle and fisheye, uh, combine that with long exposure, but also short exposures. So my attempt at that was the lightning shot. Let me just bring that up real quick. Oh, where did it go? Oh, it was right here. Oh, here it is. So this is my attempt at trying to go a little bit beyond what Michael Kenna does, but mastering that general technique, right, of long exposure, but also adding some sort of like kinetic energy to it with the lightning. So that's why I combined a very short exposure and a long exposure. And I used a relatively wide angle lens. This one was shot, I believe, at 24 millimeter, 12, I was on the wide end, 12 millimeters. So that's what I mean. I'm taking something that Michael Kenna would inspiration from. So the closest thing I have to a Michael Kenna photo, if you haven't looked at his website yet, is maybe this one. Take away these rocks or take away this lighthouse, just isolate one or the other. And that's more like a Michael Kenna type shot. But this is definitely a little bit different, or the direction I'm trying to go. But I'd like to also include some architecture, maybe some different, maybe tilt the camera, so that I'm not, again, my focal plane or my sensor is not parallel with the subject. With wide angle lens, a little trickier to do. But that's, so that's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to constantly think of ways to get creative and find a unique style. And I encourage you guys to do the same. All right. Wow, there's a lot of chat here. Let me try and catch up here. Affinity is free, but no AI masking included. That's true. Yes, but Affinity gives you layering and a lot of other tools. It's a really, really powerful software. Let's see. That's CM BS. Don't you hate that? All this gear and then a cell phone kills it. Yep. Shows it's not just the gear. So yeah, this whole conversation I've just been blabbering about for the last 30 minutes, about improving my photography. It's really frustrating. Uh, some people just have a good eye. Yes, I agree. Imagine what they could do with a camera, exactly. Because I took a cell phone shot. Let me show you a cell phone shot. Um, look at this. Look at this shot with my cell phone. That is horrific. Anyhow, I like that. Okay. I'm a little behind on the chat. And Nick Silver Effects rocks, even the old version I have using from Google. Wow, that is old if you have the old Google one. Back when it was free, right? I've made my own presets over the years and just love it. Yes, I agree. Nice pics and the lighthouse is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And raw files are supposed to be flat. Yes. Um, raw files are flat and supposed to be processed. And but what I meant by flat was not because it was a raw file. We're referring back to um, this image here. What I meant by flat was is that the lighting is very flat, right? There's very little depth to this image. You can you can physically see the depth because of the angle that I took this shot, but the image feels very flat, like this layer, this layer, this layer, this layer. There's very little depth from the front of this building to the very back of the building. And that's for a couple of reasons, right? It's a very compressed shot because I was using the 40 to 150 kit lens, but it's primarily the lighting. There's no depth in the lighting. So I tried to create some depth by adding shadows on each level here, but it just didn't work out. But raw files, by their very nature, are going to be flat. It seems like each time I update DxO Photolab, it kills the Nik collection button inside the Photolab, and I have to reinstall Nik. Horizon Straighten is stretchy now when working. Um, I haven't used the Horizon tool that much, and I've never had an issue with my Nik collection button not working. I've upgraded, I can't think of any scenario where it didn't work. That's weird. That's a weird bug. Hold on. I have to check something. Okay. Seems since the new update. Yeah, I haven't had any issues at all. And Darko says, Rob, a photography model would be, I have more cameras than I need, but not as many as I want. Yes, so true, right? So many cameras I want. Money, no object. I would have so many cameras. I would definitely have a 907, Hasselblad 907. And Adam says, that could be a new photo series, Rob Trek. That's that's some bullshit. And it's everyone's image that looks incredible. That shouldn't be as good as it was from a cell phone. That's hilarious. Oh, I like the cityscape. Thanks. And rest in peace, Jay Maisel died at 95. Great New York. Yes, rest in peace. Uh, and check out Jay Myself Film. Watch it. Yes, okay. Not familiar with him at all. 50 watching, only 20 likes. Yep, that's about par for the course. And I did a round of subscribing to Lenswork, and they do a great job showing off some different ways to curate and I think about photos and photo series. Okay. I'm not familiar with them. Subscribe for just a year. You get a magazine and a monthly dose, not like drinking from the digital fire hose all at once. Yes. That's cool. So if they're that's what's great about this hobby, right? Is there's so many ways you can approach it. Like doing a series of photos, whether it's like putting 5 to 10 together or just doing a diptych or triptych if you want to do that. There's so many creative ways to do photography. And I like browsing on Flickr. It's more photographer orientated on Flickr, that's for sure. But I say start with a master photographer and then really see an amazing photo and then go to Flickr for more inspiration, right? So I listen to many photographing podcasts, including Lenswork. Okay. Do you have videos on low key, high key? I do not. Yipes, that phone shot. Yeah. Uh, so if you're referring to low key photography and high key photography, no. I've never felt comfortable doing videos on photography. Like this is how you do low key photography. This is how you do high key. Because I've never had that much confidence in my own photography that I felt like I could teach others how to take a good picture, right? So I've always focused on the technical side of getting to know your gear and learning how to use it and what its limits are and what its capabilities are. Uh, the photography in of itself, yeah, I'm not very good at, if I don't have confidence in my own photographs or don't find my own photographs that good, it's hard to teach others how to take a photograph, right? Okay, so we'll call it here. I think I'm all caught up on the chat. I showed the pictures I want to show. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today. It's always a lot of fun, and I look forward to every week doing this with you guys. So thank you so much for being here and all your support over the years. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate it. So I want you guys to have a good day. Try to do that every day. You'll have a good life, right? So eat healthy and exercise. I want us all to be together a long time. Go out and take some photos, and I hope to see everyone again.